at the end of the day, it's about cooking good food, right? So get a thermopen, be consistent, make good food all the time. If it's your first time cooking a brisket or your 1,000th time cooking a brisket, that thermopen is going to help you be consistent because you're going to get the temperature. You're going to have that. You're going to know where you're at. You're going to be able to go by temperature and by the feel that you mentioned, but especially in poultry, you've got to have that so you're not undercooked or overcooked because I don't know which one's worse.
Thank you for tuning into the Pitmasters podcast. My name is Rusty Monson.
I'm Anthony Lujan.
Today on the podcast, we're talking with Kyle Halvorson from ThermoWorks, and we're going to talk a lot about their products and what they can do to help you improve your game and barbecue in the backyard or even in the competition or in the kitchen, professionally or whatever. So let's get going.
What's going on, Rusty?
What's up, man?
Not a whole lot. I'm just feeling really full right now.
Yeah, we went to Scene's Smokehouse in Utah and
Saratoga Springs.
And I have to say it's probably the best restaurant, I would say, in Utah. It's the best barbecue by far. So
for sure,
hit it up if you guys get a minute.
And order the chicken. Chicken was my favorite.
Order it all.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the pork.
The pork was
the
good.
Ribs.
It all was good.
I liked the tater tots. I liked
the cornbread.
Cornbread. I like the brisket.
The breakfast burger.
I like the breakfast burger.
We ordered it all, guys.
Let's just say don't go and eat there before you do a podcast because it's really hard to focus and stay motivated.
For sure. Hey, I wanted to point something out today, Rusty. We're 1 week out from Thanksgiving. The biggest tip I can tell you is pull out your birds now and put them in the fridge so they have plenty of time to thaw out.
That's true.
You don't want to rush the scenario. Trust me.
Yeah.
It's bad.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
They don't cook well enough. So yeah, guys, good tip.
Yeah.
Pro tip by Anthony.
Yep. So what are we doing today? Where are we at?
Cool. Well, we're going to talk to Kyle from ThermoWorks. He was awesome to let us come in here. We're actually live from ThermoWorks right now in American Fork, Utah. Then we'll get him on the mic and talk a little bit about what they do here and talk about their products and how they can help you become a better cook, because they will, trust me. Every single person that I talk to or every video I watch, or even when we talk to people like Malcolm Reed and all those guys, they say the number one tool is the ThermoWorks Thermopen. So it's the gold standard of basically any kind of thermometer you'd want, probe, any of that stuff. So we just wanted to kind of go through all the products and see about what you could use, because there's some stuff that I just kind of saw and never thought I would use, and I've got it and I use it all the time. So let's go through some stuff like that. So we'll introduce Kyle. So say, hey, Kyle.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you. So tell me, for those who don't know, and they've been living under a rock for a very long time, what is ThermoWorks?
Well, here at ThermoWorks, we are the makers of the Thermopen and along with a lot of other high-end thermometers, as well as timers and meters, pH meters.
Cool.
So pretty much everything you need for cooking, we make, and we are a company based in instrumentation and metrology, which is not a typo. That's metrology and meteorology are actually different, which I didn't know until I started working here. But metrology is the study of measurement.
Okay.
So we have a chief metrologist on staff, and that's our background is in science and measurement.
Metrology?
Yes.
No, big words. I'm telling you, can't eat barbecue and come do this stuff. So what is that? Like, we measure
heat and temperature.
Heat and temperature. That's it.
So obviously here at ThermoWorks, we measure temperature. Mm-hmm. That's our primary specialty is temperature. Metrology is any study of measurement. So it could be distance, it could be time, it could be temperature. Anything that's measurable is metrology is the study of how that's measured. And
how does that work in the products? I mean, what do you use him for? Let's see, like the time it would take to get the temperature, the measurement of what?
So what do we use our metrologist for?
Yeah.
We actually design all of our products in-house. That's kind of something that we may talk about a little bit later when we talk about why ThermoWorks is different. But a lot of the gear all the products that we sell, we design here. And even some of the stuff in our calibration lab is designed by our metrologist and our executive teams, who are executives at Hart Scientific, which is now Fluke.
Oh, cool.
Before they came in and founded ThermoWorks.
So I have a question about your calibration area. Is that federally regulated? Like I know some places like weight to measurements and stuff like that, they have a federal guideline. Is that the same as for temperature?
So there is an accrediting body that comes out, and we are accredited in our calibration lab under A2LA accreditation. And that they come out once a year. They inspect our process and our equipment and make sure that we're doing everything correctly.
This is super. Yeah. That's awesome. That's way cool. I didn't know any of that. So how did ThermoWorks come about? Where did it all get started?
Sure. As I mentioned or alluded to, the CEO and founder, Randy Owen, was an executive or president at Hart Scientific, where they make some of the most advanced calibration tools in the country and even in the world. Second, maybe only to NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards. He saw an opportunity and he took it to found ThermoWorks to make some of the best quality commercial equipment that they could make. Way back in the day, there wasn't a thermopen. You had a meter that you'd hold in one hand and a probe with a cable in the other, and you had to plug the probe into the meter, and that was your thermometer, right?
Yeah.
So after a couple of years, and as restaurants started to take some of these FDA guidelines more seriously, he saw that need for maybe a more compact, reliable unit, especially in a restaurant scenario. The ThermoPen came out of that, and it really took off.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I remember working in restaurants and using just these kind of fluky whatever I could buy.
Analog. It's kind of, the heat spring, that's where.
Well, what he was saying, the one part and you plug it in. We still use that, right. And then we started using ThermoWorks products, and it was night and day, man. It went from, I don't know, it's like the weight part of it was just super weird. Like we can walk into that for just a second, like the ThermoPen. Okay. So I was a kitchen manager at a restaurant, and you'd have to walk the line and temp everything and stuff like that. And so I get these, just whatever, I'd be at Target or Walmart, and I just grab whatever, cause it fit right in my little jacket. And I go through and I have to temp all the things and, stick it in, hold. And then we got ThermoWorks stuff. We just go bump, 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 and just walking down the line. So what makes ThermoWorks different than those? Why is it, what is it that these guys obviously can't do? I mean, they're whatever, but this is like insta read. I mean, you put that in, it's like, boom, it's right there. When others take up sometimes like 10, 15 seconds.
Sure. And it wasn't always that way, right? To become better, it takes continual improvement, and we're still working on improvements, ways that we can make that better. But it's that continuous dedication to quality and to be the best. That's what we're really after. So there's a lot of technology that goes into the ThermoPen. Even though there's a lot of products that look like it, there are no products that perform like the ThermoPen because of the amount of instrumentation grade circuitry that we put on the internal motherboard. All the thermocouples are handmade in our factory in the UK. They're not made in China, the ThermoPen. Not that that's good or bad, but they are made by hand. Every ThermoPen the probes are all tested before they're attached to a ThermoPen. And then once the ThermoPens are built, every single one of them is tested by a person in a calibration bath. And we were testing for that speed and that accuracy. And then every CAT ThermoPen comes with that calibration certificate. So it's just things that we do that other people can't do, or because it's expensive, or because it takes a lot of time.
And they are more expensive. I mean, I'll go to Walmart and grab something for $10. These are $100, $70. Sometimes, they have sales and stuff like that. So it's more expensive, and that's probably why. It's because it's just basically just better stuff involved.
That and the quality, Rusty. Like, have you ever bought just like a cheap one and dropped it and the LCD screen breaks? I've dropped my ThermoPen multiple times. It just bounces, and I'm like, it's good to go. It's literally good quality stuff where it's impact resistant, not proof, but it's
when we were first doing the team, we had what looked like a ThermoPen. Looks just like it. It's different. You can tell. And they're like, well, it's the same thing, I'm like, it's not, man. I have this ThermoPen. You have your thing. Watch. Like, I'll have this for 10 years. You're going to have yours for 10 days. And that was true. Literally he broke it 1 month in, and it was gone. Right. Can't use it anymore. So the product is unreal. So the ThermoPen, like I said, if people ask me, I've heard it asked, what's the number one thing you want to use when you're cooking barbecue? I'm a chef, so I do a lot at home. I'm using my ThermoPen literally 45 times a day. So if you're out there and you cook even anything, you want to go and invest in this, because you're not only going to have something that's going to last you forever, but the time that it saves you opening up your oven and getting that steam in your face, and you're trying to get your temp right. And 15 seconds is a really long time in that scenario, especially when you're cooking barbecue in your pit. You don't want to open that up and have that just cool off. You want to go boom and get out. There are times you're sticking in, you're like, okay, keep going, then go, and then those fluctuate. Right. So yeah, they're a little bit more expensive than what you can buy there, but I'm telling you, it's one of those things that you invest in that you're going to have for a really long time and you're going to want.
You know what else I use my ThermoPen for? Knowing how hot it is outside. I'm serious. I can hold my iPhone up with my ThermoPen right there, and they're almost identical, like within 1 or 2 degrees. So I don't even pull out my phone. I'm like, man, it's hot out here. And I just hold out my ThermoPen. I'm like, all right, I got a current ambient temperature.
I did that with our Canberra. So I'll just throw it in real quick and open it and look. Okay, got it. And I do that with my Yetis and stuff too, to see if they're at 41 degrees and all that fun stuff. Right. So I want to get into a little bit of more different products, because there's a lot of people know about the ThermoPen. I think it's probably the widest known product, but there's also a whole bunch of different probes for specifically. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, guys. I mean, we're just talking barbecue here, but if you want to look them up and get some different stuff, there's just everything you'd want. But I want to talk barbecue specifically. And so I have at home, personally, I have a Signals, I have a Smoke, I have the Time Stick, which I actually won in a contest.
Here at ThermoWorks.
Here at ThermoWorks. And I use it all the time. I throw that thing around my neck. I'm like, cool. All right, let's set that for 5 minutes and I'll go back. And I don't have to worry about, because I usually use my oven. So I'll put it around my neck and literally just set it, and then I forget, and it scares the crap out of me. I also use a time stack for a steak specifically. We also use it. Jared's here with us today. He's part of Salt City Barbecue. We use that exclusively for our competitions, because, and the cool part about the time stack is that when you're using it, you can program your voice. So it's kind of cool, because we'll hit, say flip the ribs. And so we'll be sitting there and I'll hear flip the ribs. Flip the ribs, which is funny. But at the same time, when you're off running around trying to figure out 4 different meats in a competition, it's go time on chicken. You got to do something. It's cool to hear what it is. It's like, what's the timer? What's the timer? What's the timer? It's like, you're telling yourself what the flip is. So I actually ended up using that thing all the time. So, I just want to kind of go through all of these little things that people might not know about, or they look at and go, would I use that? And kind of go through them and see how those work and how you can apply them to your cooks.
And yeah, those are the things that you have. And I guess ammo box contains the ThermoPen, 4 dots, and then the Smoke. So I use all of them at every competition, but the dot is the one that I use the most. And this is what I use. I have a fridge a little bit on the older side, and it kind of fluctuates between cold temperature. I actually have a dot in there for my home fridge. I turned it on almost 3 years ago. The battery has not died on me once.
Really? Yeah.
So
is there like a battery life on those dots? Because I had the same problem. It's not a problem at all.
But yeah, like literally 3 years.
I'll leave mine
on for 3 years. It's never turned off.
Is that a thing? Do you guys have a specific time or whatever? I don't know anything about batteries.
There is a specific time. I don't know what it is offhand. I'd assume it's in the 3,000 to 5,000 hour range, but we can pull it up on the website. They're great. The dots are fantastic. They're very low power consumption, like you mentioned, but they're designed to be simple. And since you brought it up, the dot is part of what we call our leave-in thermometer line. So we've talked a lot about ThermoPen and even mentioned ThermoPop, which is our instant read thermometers, where you open the oven or open your smoker and you get that temperature really fast. Our leave-in thermometers are designed for a different purpose. They're still fast, but you put them in your meat and then you leave them, right? And you get your temperature display on the outside. So that way you don't have to open the oven door, or the smoker, where you're at. And then when you get close, you can pull your ThermoPen and do your final checks and make sure you're even and consistent in your temperatures.
And that's another thing, is that I don't know if you guys know this, but your oven, when you put it and it says 300 degrees, your oven's not 300 degrees. It's 275 to 325, and it fluctuates between there. Sometimes the cheaper ones are worse. So I'll actually put mine in as a temperature so I know the temperature of my oven. Because sometimes, especially with convection ovens, it's nice to have a consistent, because I use convection at home. So it's nice to have that in there so I know if I need to adjust up and down. Because sometimes, especially in my house now, it's not the case, but my old house, man, it was crazy. It was like 20 degrees colder than it said. So it's nice to use those things too for home use.
And the leave-ins, what I love about the leave-ins is there's so many options with them. They have the straight pan, just their standard one that comes with most of their equipment, but then they have the curved ones for like your pots or your pans, like your roasters and stuff like that. And then I really like they just came out with it a couple years ago, is the really super thin one where you could put in between like bones of ribs and stuff like that. They have so many options to be able to adapt to whatever you're cooking. Mm-hmm. So
and those dots are the dots are awesome. I forgot to mention, I do have 4 of those, and I got those when I worked at the restaurant. But they're sneaky too, because you put them on the side, you can forget about them. So be careful. So I have them, and they're durable. I'll tell you, man, they'll be on the summer heat on the side of my good one, just on the side, just stuck there, and I'll forget all about them, and I'll come back, and they're still there, just ticking. Like, oh, hey, you finally come home. Yeah, I'm still here.
And your temperature is, and it tells you.
Yeah, it lets me know. But those dots are really cool too. I'm glad you brought those up, because those dots are they're more affordable, but they're super convenient, because I use them on. That's not. I used to use them on everything, but since I got the smoke and the signals, specifically the signals, I don't need it anymore. But it's still nice to have, because I will sometimes, you'll get going and cook a lot of meats, but the signals for me is probably the best. So that's what I'll kind of touch on next. So tell me about the signals, Kyle. What's so cool about that?
So the signals is another part of our lineup. And maybe we should fill the gap in between the signals and the dot, because there is a line that uses what we call our Pro Series probes. They share all the probes, and they serve essentially the same function, but they have a different feature sets. So the dot is the most simple. It shows you your current temperature. You can set an alarm, so when you get up to temperature and you're not paying attention, it'll get your attention. You move up from there to the chef alarm, but you can add a low alarm. So and that's helpful in a pit or an oven. If you get too cold, it'll go off, in addition to going off when it gets too hot. You also add the timer, which is nice. Both of those are single channel thermometers, which means they'll take one probe at a time. And then we move up to smoke, which you've mentioned. And smoke has 2 channels. So now you can watch your meat and your oven, or you 2 meats if you want to do a turkey breast and a turkey leg, just because those are different done temperatures. And then you move up to signals, which is what we were talking about, which is 4 channels. And that adds the built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functionality, which is really nice. So then you can track it on your phone. If you're out at a competition, you don't have Wi-Fi, it doesn't matter, just go direct to your phone. If you're at home and you want to get it over Wi-Fi and leave, maybe you need to go to the grocery store, you can still check your temperatures. If your pit catches on fire, hopefully it doesn't. But you would get an alarm, and you can get home and get that taken care of. More likely, if the fire burns out, and you don't want to come home to cold meat.
Yeah, that's true. I like that too. I think the cool thing for me is the signals is the 4 channel, like you said. But going back on the smoke, it's only 2 channels, but it has a little what's the word here? What is it?
Receiver.
The receiver. I prefer that personally. Because it's nice, because I'll go in the house, I'll put my probe in, and I have it sitting on my coffee table just chilling, and it beeps at me. So beep, 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 beep. When it's ready, I'm like, oh, I should go check that. And it's cool, but honestly, a lot of people go, well, would you rather have the signals or the smoke? I'm like, both. And I mean that, because I use at home, I'll use the smoke, but if I am cooking at a comp, or if I'm cooking a catering where I have a lot of meats going on at the same time, I'm using the signals because of the 4 channels. I can use it I can leave, and I can watch it on my phone. But it also runs the billows, right? Is that the only way to run the billows is with the signal, right?
Correct. That's the only fan controller that we have.
And so the billows is cool. We'll get to that in a second. But the signals, another cool thing is that the app will track, you can track your meat temperatures and stuff like that. So someone like me who's a note taker, and I like to track my meats, and I like to have data. on what they cooked, that will have, it has it for you on the app, right?
Yes, it'll store all your your data from your cook. So you can see when you started, how long it took to get your pit up to temperature, when you put your meat on, how long your meat takes. If you want to start playing with different temperatures and different times, it's really convenient to be able to track that. And you can export it to Excel if you want and save it on your computer, all that.
And so I'll do that and I'll mark the temperature of the outside. So if it was cold, how long did it take my pit to get to temp? Those are important things to know when you're doing competition barbecue, because if I'm living in Southern California and it's hot all the time, you know, and it might have got cold one day and I using my signals, you know, and I can see that on my app, like, oh, it was cold. So it took an extra 15 minutes. That time's crucial if you're running hot and fast like I am, you know, like every 10-minute counts, you know, so you have to know that stuff. So I'm always writing it down. I'll keep it and I'll write it down on my little pad of paper, and I'll just see how long it took. And then I'll write what the degrees was it sunny? Was it rainy? Was it overcast? All that fun stuff. So, and it's color coded, so I know where it's at. I always have one on my grill. I know what the temperature is. I always have one on my meat. So when we have the signals going, we have the barrels going around and it's right there. I can put them in every single meat and have all my meats running with all four of my barrels with that signals. And I'll put the smoke as a temperature gauge on 2 of them. So that's my setup. But I haven't used the billows yet. So tell me about that. Like, what is it working on now? Like, what can you get that on?
As far as smokers or?
Right. I know you said you did a Weber Smoky Mountain that ran for 19 hours, you said, or something like that?
Yeah, we loaded a Weber Smoky Mountain with just a bag of Kingsford. And I believe it ran for about 30 hours on a single bag. We just lit it up and set it. I mean, that's been a year ago now. I think it was 225 or 250, and it'll run forever.
Kingsford, huh?
That was empty. No meat on that cook, because that was just a test run. And then they'll run a long time. The nice thing is you just shut it off when you're done. You can put that plug back in, save your charcoal for the next cook, which is pretty normal. Then we also have the Kamado plates, so you can put it on your Kamado grills. It's very versatile. It attaches with that little scissor spring, so you can put it on just about any grill.
Okay, so you feel like if you put it on a gateway, you just put that on and it just kind of hooks in? What would you suggest that?
Yeah, I've seen it hooked up to some gateways and the kind of the snorkel vents on the drums. I believe Uncle Jesse actually brings those. Nate.
Oh, he does. Yeah. Nate Benson. Yeah, he does. Man, we need to get with him on that.
So he ran that at the SCA competition when you guys were here. What was that?
It was, what was it, 2 months ago?
August?
Yeah, that wasn't too long ago.
No, it wasn't long at all. No, it was September 22nd, something like that. Yeah. That wasn't long ago.
Speaking of that, thank you. It was a great event.
Oh, well, thank you.
That was awesome.
That was mostly Steve from Barbecue Pit Stop, but we did host it here and we had a good time. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was actually funny. We did it at ThermoWorks, but everyone's using ThermoWorks stuff. It's just how it is. So the Billows is a temperature gauge similar to a barbecue guru. Very similar, but this one's cool because it's a little bit cheap. It's a lot cheaper than a guru, like a lot. But you do have to run it through the signals, which I would suggest getting anyway. But if you do have a signals, it'd be worth it getting billows. Sorry, I keep on calling it billows. And then just trying to use it on your pit, because that temperature control stuff, I just got into it. It is the nicest thing. I have one for the my Salt City drum smoker. And I started doing the temperature gauges and the fans and stuff like that. And it's so nice because you just set that thing in there. So it's like it puts all of your, like my barrels, it makes them like a pellet grill now, and just kind of set it and forget it. And it's awesome. They're easy to set up. Just plugs in, you can carry it with you on your phone. So that's another cool tool to use. I don't know why everyone's not using those now. I was kind of, well, I'm an old school guy and I just my pit. I know my pit, so. Yeah. I'm going to use a temperature control for the competitions.
When I converted into a system like that too, you could get a lot more use out of your fuel. It's kind of an expensive upfront cost, but you'll make it up in the back end with your fuel. I promise you that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And
it's
a big time saver too.
Yeah,
So when you're trying to get your pit up to temperature, being able to push the air through there in my Kamado, it makes it go a lot faster. I don't use it every time, but pretty much all the time now.
Yeah. Usually when I was running them, it was just one chimney of charcoal and that was it. Mm-hmm. And I would actually have leftover charcoal. The bellows is definitely a buy for the bag.
No, for sure. That one's a really good one. But temperature control, guys, if you're not into that, maybe we can talk about that in a later podcast, but man, that's been nice. That was really fun. And if you do solid white city drum smokers, they're pretty user friendly as far as putting those in. The bellows can go on the top part, the snorkel part, like you said. So it works out great. Let's go to something else here.
Let's talk about some of your commercial grade stuff. I know you guys have some high end commercial grade stuff.
Absolutely. At ThermoWorks, we like to say everything we make is commercial grade. We kind of talked a little bit about how we started catering in the restaurant industry with the ThermoPen, and that's really what we built it for, was for industry use. We use the commercial quality and sensors. Everything is commercial. The reason people like it at home is because it holds up. It's not the cheap houseware stuff that you get at a big box store. It's purpose built and it'll last you forever. I spent my first 2 years here at ThermoWorks in technical support doing repair work, and I would consistently see ThermoPens that were 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 years old come in. We'd put them in the calibration bass and they'd read exactly 32 and 212 like they were supposed to. But for one reason or another, an accident happened and they cracked the housing or things happen, right, in life, especially when you're cooking, it gets busy. But so we can do the repairs on those. And that's another kind of interesting thing about ThermoPen that doesn't exist on any of your $20, $30 pieces of equipment. If they break or if an accident happens, we can fix those here. We have a full staff of tech support. Just send them on in and we can get those repaired.
And calling them is super awesome, especially when they're out of batteries. That's all it is. Like they tell those stories when you're working, like phone calls, service, whatever, technical support, where the old lady calls and wants to know what's wrong with her drink holder. Like that I'm that guy. So I'm like, what? It's not working. What's going on? Like, just change the batteries. I'm like, how do you do that? And like they walk me through. It's super cool. Really responsive customer service here too. I've actually called them for a couple of things. It's been super cool. And like you said, if something breaks, you just bring it in, Exactly.
And that's another thing that kind of sets us apart from competition. If you were to buy something at Walmart or on Amazon, there may or may not be a phone number on that box. I don't know. I can't say. I haven't bought them all. When you buy our stuff, we publish our accuracy specifications, the temperature ranges that they're used for, the speed at which you can expect a reading. And we have several methods to contact us if you need help. We have a phone, we have email, we have text. You can message us on your phone. We even have live chat on your computer. And our goal is to answer every phone call with a live person within 2 to 3 rings. I mean, if that doesn't happen, that's atypical of ThermoWorks customer service. We want to get somebody to help you as quickly as possible. And then, like I said, we have a whole room full of trained tech support agents that do the repair work, but they also do the troubleshooting. So if you can't get it hooked up to your Wi-Fi for one reason or another, if you got a Wi-Fi product, we can, within reason, help you get that figured out. And we will take as much time as we need to make sure that it's working for you.
That's true, because my smoke, I hadn't used the little...
the gateway?
The smoke. What was it again? That little... We take it with you.
The receiver?
Receiver, thank you. Barbecue brain, man. Yeah. Damn you, seen. So that wasn't coupling up, so I had to go through and talk to that guy, and he had like 5 different solutions, and we were on the phone for 45 minutes, and nicest dude, man.
I should point out that it doesn't usually take 45 minutes to solve a problem.
Oh, actually, I was being it didn't take that long at all. But it took a long time because it was a very technical problem, but he was walking through every step. That was the point I was trying to make, was that he took every single step he could to get mine fixed, and got it fixed. Works this day. It's amazing. Didn't take 45 minutes. I'm sorry.
There's a little troubleshooting guide in the box that you could probably look at too.
But when you just call someone and talk to them, and like, what's up, man? He can listen to my kids screaming in the background. I could ruin his day. And just kidding.
And so tell us a little bit about like how the probe system works. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but everybody always thinks you have to bury the probe in to get an accurate read.
And that comes from the old school dial thermometers. You remember the ones with the needle on them that would kind of move up and down? That's a bimetal stem thermometer, it means it's a spring inside the stem. It's made up of two metals. And as they change temperature, they expand and contract at different rates, which physically moves the needle on the dial. And for those, you really did have to bury that whole spring in the meat. And that was 1.5 inches to 2 inches sometimes. And then it would average the temperature over that whole spring. You couldn't see the spring because it was coated by the sleeve. And that's so that you don't get food and gross stuff in there. But that's why they're slow to respond. And if they get bumped or dropped, they can fall out of calibration. You got to check them all the time. And that's where all of these old habits have come from with thermometers. With the new ones like ThermoPen, all of our digital thermometers have those sensors, the thermocouples or the thermistors, if you want to get really technical, right in the very tip of the probe. We've done a lot of research and a lot of trial and error in production to get those as close as we possibly can into the tip without compromising the integrity of them. And that is what allows them to read so quickly. So really, you're reading temperature at the tip of the probe. If you go all the way through your roast on accident, you're going to get air temperature underneath your roast. So what you want to do is get the tip of your thermometer or your tip of your probe where you want to know what the temperature is. It used to surprise me how many people would call in and say, my thermometer doesn't ever lock on a temperature. So well, it's not a bathroom scale. It's a thermometer. And if you're cooking, you're changing the temperature of your food. And that's why your thermometer is changing, or why your ThermoPen is changing, is because it's literally telling you what's happening in real time with your food. Even as you push it through the food, you're going to be hotter generally on the outside, especially if you're grilling over high heat, than you are in the middle. So that's why you push it through and check in multiple places, because it's going to be cooler in the center. And you want to know what the coolest temperature is, not if the outside's safe. You want to know if the inside's also safe, because you're going to eat that too.
Right. So with Thanksgiving coming up just a little bit, what is your best tip to reading your bird? Because I know a lot of people, they just push straight down on the breast meat to get a reading.
Dude, good question.
But where's the actual, I guess maybe 2 primo spots, because we have a dark meat and a light meat. Where's the 2 primo spots to be putting your ThermoPen in to get the most accurate reading?
Exactly. The one you're most concerned about, right? Nobody likes dry turkey, is the breast, because that's going to dry out way sooner than your dark meat. I don't know if I've ever seen dry dark meat, because it can go all the way up to 190 without really compromising the moisture. But as soon as your breast meat hits that 165, it's done, safe, get it out. You can actually take it out a little bit sooner, right? Because this concept of carryover cooking that we talk about a lot on our blog. And if you want more details, you can check it out there. It's just blog.thermoworks.com. And there's going to be lots of turkey content up top, because that's what's relevant right now. But get your probe in the thickest part of that breast. Avoid the bones, because that's going to throw off your readings. And when you get close to about 155, 157, pull it out and check it and make sure that's your lowest temperature. And then you can leave that probe in while it's on the counter and actually watch your temperature continue to rise. And you'll get 7 to 10 degrees worth of carryover cooking as the hotter outsides transfer more heat to the center of the breast.
Well,
Yeah,
I didn't know that actually.
that's where the resting your meat.
Yep. Rest your meat, allow the temperatures to equalize, allow it to reabsorb some moisture, and you will be amazed. I've never liked turkey growing up until I started working here and realized that it didn't have to be dry.
Doesn't have to chew like salt, like cardboard.
Pass the gravy.
Yeah, when I temp my birds too, I usually don't push temp straight down to the breast. I usually go from the neck side and slide it in more to the center of the breast, versus you could go through and then get a false reading.
Well, it's always the bottom. When you're cutting down, it's right when you get to the bottom. That's where that's where it's usually raw. So that's where I would go with that. But it's funny. I think I mentioned on a podcast earlier is that I didn't know about that with the ThermoWorks. That little tip is where that's the only place it reads the temperature. Yep.
And that's why we always recommend double checking, because when you put your leave-in probe in there, it's really only reading the temperature in that one spot. And when it's cold, you don't know where the thermal center is, what we call it. It's not always the exact center of the object, but it's the part that gets warmest to last, or that's the thermal center. So you're guessing at that when you put your probe in the first time, and then you're checking with your thermopen. If you find a colder spot, then you take your probe out and move it to where that cold spot is, put it back in the oven, and now you can keep going with confidence.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, because just at comps too, you're like, oh, I forgot to put my thermopen in or my leave-in before you close. You're like, oh man, so you kind of just throw it in there like a dart, and sometimes they come in on an angle, and I go and temp it, and I'm like 5 degrees difference, and I'm like, then I'll make the adjustment. But
it's not that your thermometer is not reading correctly; it's that your meat is different temperatures.
Exactly. So I it's funny because if you go back on my old posts, you see my probes are just all the way in the meat, and then you'll notice by the time I figured it out, they're sticking way out.
It's like a little clock.
Yeah. And that's why we sell different sizes and shapes of probes, right? Because that 6-inch probe with the bend in it you talked about is probably not the best one for a fillet of salmon. Right. It definitely isn't the best one. It's going to be way too big. It's going to tear up your fish. So if you wanted something for that, I would use the needle probe, that waterproof needle probe like you talked about for ribs. It's a much smaller hole, much less weight. If you're doing a steak, you use the 2.5-inch probe because you can get it in there and it's not got a lot of weight on the end of it, just trying to throw it off balance.
Yeah. And that's another misconception is some of these, like the great clips, even, I use that for temperature because it's all the same, right? I mean, even though it's a great clip, it's made for the grate. I can still probe it.
You're talking about the air probe with that blunt tip?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. They all have the same sensors in them. It's different shapes of the metal tip or the probe for different purposes, but they all measure temperature the same.
Yeah, don't be afraid to use those if you have to. I've used them before in thick steaks where I don't want to go all the way in the middle, but like a New York strip that, I don't want to poke it in. I'll stick that in the side. And so it's a big, thick, small, stubby one. But they also have smaller ones too. So I'm just saying, don't be afraid of that. I learned that because it's all the same, really. So, barbecue setups, we kind of went through that. Like we talked about signals is kind of a must. I'd use a bellows for sure, but you need a thermopen, or I don't know what you're doing. I'd be interested to see what people are using out there that are not ThermoWorks and how that works. Because I don't know. I've never used it. Yeah. A different one because I learned early and I learned quick. Learned a dot. And I use a time stick, like I said.
You know what? My first thermopen was the pop. It fit within my budget and it was awesome. And you still get the whole same thing as a thermopen. You get the 360, but it's just not as big and not as convenient. But yeah, the pop was my go-to for a long time. That's actually, I should have mentioned that too, because that's where I started. That's the one we had in the restaurant because it fits better. Yeah. On my shoulder. So arm. Wasn't on my, whatever. Damn, you see. Think he's watching. But for steak, let's talk about steak for a second. So, I mean, I'm ThermoWorksed up on my SEA events, right? So I'm using the thermopen, of course. And I cannot tell you guys the best investment I made for SEA competitions was the time stack, because when you're flipping those steaks, you have to cook them especially if you get it dialed in. For me right now, it's about 1:40, 1:50, and I'm flipping those steaks and that comes up on you pretty quick. So you're sitting there thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna put the steak on for 1:40. You walk away and you'll be surprised how fast that 1:40 comes up on you. So you have that time stack sitting right there and you just hit that button because it's already set. And it's cool because once it does the 140, it's already reset to 140. So I hit 140, walk away. It goes beep, beep, beep. I flip it, hit the button again. It's already at 140 and goes again. So then there's 4 different channels on that. So you could do 4 different alarms. But when it comes to SEA cooking, I don't know that's my number one favorite. Okay, thermopen is always my favorite. So if I say favorite, let's just say like the ThermoWorks is the Beatles, the thermopen, I mean, and then all the rest of this stuff is the other things. So thermopen, the Beatles, right? My favorite, whatever. So use the thermostat for the SEA events. I actually know a lot of people who do use dots for that too. So that's kind of an SEA setup too. My SEA setup is. Now I'll be using the big and loud for my timer. I have the thermopen, and then this year I'm going to be picking up their infrared. They have an infrared reader too. We haven't touched about which.
Oh, I use that too. That's
so the infrared reader. So those are the 3 that I would take into an SEA event.
So the infrareds I have at home for steaks. I use the IR gun. I think that's just the normal standard one, right?
Yeah, we have several models. Probably the IR gun S. Yeah, is the one that you have.
That's the one I have at home. Yeah. So, That is, I use it all the time too, because I cook on a flat top at home. So I'm always checking the temperatures, but I use grill grates and I want to get that temperature up to 600 degrees. So I need to know when I'm at 600 degrees. So I'll use that infrared and I'll get once that's 160, then I know I can put my steak on and we're good to go. This sounds like we're at ThermoWorks. We're live at ThermoWorks. We're talking to Kyle and we're talking all ThermoWorks. But I got to tell you guys, I cannot stress enough. I literally only use ThermoWorks products.
I don't think like you said earlier, I don't think I've seen anything else in somebody's camp.
And we've talked a lot about barbecue competition where, there's a lot of money on the line. Yeah. But even at home, you talk about this IR gun for your flat top. Mm-hmm. I use the same thing on my cast iron when I make pancakes. Yeah. How you always burn the first three or undercook the first three, trying to figure out your temperature, and then you go too hot and you got to wait for it to cool back down. With the infrared, it's easy. You just check your temperature and you can adjust the stove and you get your cast iron exactly where you want it and your pancakes come off perfect. Yep. There's lots of uses for it, but they're not all competition, right?
Yeah. I also use it for catering too. So when you hold stuff, people don't realize they'll stick a thermopin in the middle of something, but the health department will get you on the outside too. So you have to get that thermored, click on that. So if you're in a restaurant business, that's crucial. You'll come in and say they'll temp that with an infrared too. Say that's at 50 degrees. You're in violation. Yeah. So that's just one of those pro tips for my restaurant.
That's a good point out there for you, Kyle. That's the number one thing with cast iron. You have to let it get to temperature. I didn't know that when I first started cast iron cooking. I used to just turn it on, leave it on the stove for a minute, throw some butter in, and throw my steak on it. It'd stick every single time because we didn't let it come to temp. And I've never used my infrared for cast iron, but now I will from today forward.
I actually do that too. I use mine for cast iron all the time. It's crucial.
If you're doing Dutch oven cooking and you want to know kind of where you're at, there's the general rules of thumb, however many coals on the bottom and coals on the top. But you can kind of get an idea what your temperatures are too. It's not exact because your cast iron is not going to be perfectly uniform all the way around, depending on where your coals are placed and how the wind's blowing, but it'll give you a good ballpark. So,
and that's one, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually use that all the time too. I mean, you come to this ThermoWorks store here and just so you guys do know, it is a store here in American Fork. So if you are local, it's a place you can come in and buy the products too. I know they're available everywhere, but just in case you wanted to do that, they're available here for purchase. But if you walk into that area, that looks like my kitchen, actually. So I use everything. So, but that would be my SCA setup: the infrared, the time stick, and of course the thermopen. And those are my number one crucial things. I personally don't use any kind of probe for my steak while I'm cooking it. I just do the time thing. So I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to use those and use your signals for that, but I personally don't. So that's my SCA, damn you see, SCA competition setup, and then my barbecue setup. Like I said, very similar. I add the infrared to the SCA. Again, these things are investments that you will be more than happy that you'd made. I was for sure. I've got my thermopin 2 years ago and I use it every day and it's just killing it. I did get a little sweet little, case for it though. It's really nice. So speaking of which, all those things I just mentioned, is there any time in the future you're going to make a sweet briefcase for people like me that you can just put them all in?
We do have a couple of case options actually with pull and pluck foam. So you can kind of pull out the foam where you want to put your items and customize them.
Cool.
You can find them on the website or I can show you after we're done recording the podcast here, but
let's do that.
We do have a couple of cases available.
Because I have one, but it doesn't fit all my stuff. I try and make it fit.
I bet you can't guess where I keep mine, Rusty.
Oh, let me guess. So Anthony has this toolbox. It's a mechanic's toolbox that stands up, and he puts all of his barbecue stuff in it and takes it, which is super convenient. But he's like a Jehovah's Witness and trying to get me to convert to this every single day. I see him like, so you're going to get one of those and you're going to use that for all your stuff? I'm like, no, leave me alone.
Well, it's just a small reminder when I was walking through your garage as I was tripping through all your gear to get to the car. Maybe it's time for a toolbox.
I'm getting a trailer, okay? Just leave me alone.
No, but what else is I've seen with ThermoWorks changing throughout the years is their color options. When we were in the store, I noticed they have a pistachio color.
We do. Yeah. We have 2 limited edition colors available right now, the pistachio and the sky blue. If you don't know, those are colors that we order in a finite quantity, and we sell through them until they're gone. And then we don't reorder those. So
they also have some sweet colors on here, like some military stuff and Operation Barbecue Relief, which I'm a huge fan of.
They have.
That's gone now. So
yeah, you may be looking at some of the ones we've done in the past that are no longer available.
I think that's what they say on the side, sold out. Is that what that means?
Yeah, that means they're not available. Yeah.
Well, there's hoping. So yeah, the pistachio colors, the colors are really cool. What else? I mean, let's see. What else can we look forward to with ThermoWorks coming out that might be interesting?
You know, that's a hard question to answer. We don't want to give away too many things, but we always have products in the pipeline. We do listen to a lot of customer feedback. Like I mentioned before, all of our products are designed here by, his name's Kevin, on our product development team. We take all of customer feedback seriously. We talk to you. We have people here. We hear that. We answer emails and phone calls every day. So, I mean, things to expect would be upgraded versions of current products, incorporating that feedback. And also, you know, just new items that maybe we haven't thought of. We've talked about 6 or 10 items today. And our SKU quantity is in the thousands. We have everything from what you would use in home cooking to 5-foot, 1/2-inch diameter probes that guys use on the food processing floor to when they've got big cartons of turkeys or frozen cranberries or whatever it may be. We have a huge variety of equipment. So those projects in the pipeline may be consumer oriented, or they might be a little bit more on the commercial side.
Nice.
There is tons. You can go through here, and it's crazy how much stuff's on here.
You can get them pretty much at any barbecue, I guess, specialty store, mostly throughout the United States. And you can also get them at thermoworks.com. That's where I usually get mine, and my son loves ThermoWorks Day because I tell him, I was like, I got ThermoWorks in the mail. He runs out there, gets it, throws the thermometer over his shoulder, and goes straight for the Jelly Bellies.
Jelly Bellies in every box.
Yeah, there's Jelly Bellies in every box, nice. Man.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff on here. You guys can look through on the website. Again, we use the product. We're not sponsored by them. We're not anything. We're not affiliated with ThermoWorks in any way. We just wanted to share what we use and what we feel is, I would say, probably the most important part of what we do. I couldn't imagine doing a competition with the stuff I used to use in the restaurant. I couldn't imagine what that would be like.
Well, and on the barbecue side too, people who are just barely getting into barbecue, your backyard guys are always like, well, I'm cooking a chicken and how long do I cook it for? I tell them, don't ever go by time, go by temp. And use your ThermoWorks pen. That's just my go-to on every tip of anybody learning how to cook is throw time out the window and get yourself a good ThermoPen or pop or whatever your budget falls within. Because ThermoWorks, if you go to their website and sign up for their email list, they sell refurbished product as well. They have a weekly special, and I don't know how many items I've bought off there on their weekly specials. It's refurbished. They go through all the same criteria that a new one does, and it's discounted. Why not?
I should clarify that that's not actually refurbished. We don't rebuild. We do repair things for customers, but we don't repair and resell. All the stuff you're referring to is open box.
Box. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
If the package gets damaged in shipping, that's considered open box. If it gets sold and returned without being used, that's open box. But it is all tested, and it is all got the same warranty as a brand new item. It's just not refurbished. We don't let people beat them up and repair them and try to resell them.
Open box sell. Let's fix that.
Yeah, and if you get on their email list, which I'm on too, they'll send you out all those things. You guys will do a contest. We give one away every week.
We do, yep. And over the holidays, we've actually increased that. So we give away 3 a week from now until the end of the year.
And then how are people entered?
Just by signing up for emails.
Okay.
We pull that email list and select random winners.
Nice.
But, we do a lot of work with the backyard community, and everyone asks about ThermoWorks and ThermoPens, and every single time they say it's too expensive. But guys, I cannot stress enough, it's going to be worth ask anyone with a ThermoPen Was it worth it? I just write me in with the no. I would love to hear it, because every time I talk to someone, they're like, oh my God, that changed everything. You guys heard me on podcasts. I actually don't temp my food with the ThermoPen. I don't, but I use it as my probe anyway, because it's super nice to hold on to. And I need it for like a lot of different stuff. I use it at home to do temperatures. I do temperatures a lot, but when I'm doing brisket, I don't really care about the temperature too much. I do use my signals, and I will put it in meat, and I will get that to 200 degrees, and I'll start probing. But when I probe, I don't use the thermometer part of it. I don't look at the temperature. So you'll hear me say that a lot. So I don't want to contradict myself. I still use it daily. I still use it in barbecue. I still use it for probing stuff. I'll still use it for our chicken. When we do chicken, I'll use that. And I do temperature for chicken, stuff like that. So you will hear me say that, but guarantee if you ask anyone if they like that purchase, they will tell you it's the best purchase they've ever made. So don't sweat it. Save up your pennies and go grab one, because will change the game for you. I
agree with Rusty 100%. What's $70 after you already invested X amount, couple $100 in your smoker? Then you have a couple $100 in meats, entry fees, travel fees, and everything. $60 isn't really nothing. It's worth it.
Even a thermopop's good. I would suggest highly using the ThermoPen, but like I said, you that's all you need, man. That your game just got elevated. So anything else you'd like to add, Kyle, that we might have missed, or something you want to talk about?
At the end of the day, it's about cooking good food, right?
Yep.
So get a ThermoPen, be consistent, make good food all the time. If it's your first time cooking a brisket or your 1,000th time cooking a brisket, that ThermoPen is going to help you be consistent, because you're going to get the temperature. You're going to have that. You're going to know where you're at. You're going to be able to go by temperature and by the feel that you mentioned, but especially in poultry, you've got to have that so you're not undercooked or overcooked, because I don't know which one's worse, to be honest.
Probably overcooked. I'm gonna lie. People are like, I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'm not gonna die. Cool. Alrighty. Well, thanks for having us over at ThermoWorks here in American Fork, Utah. Again, you can come in here and see their store. They're available basically anywhere that you want to get barbecue stuff. And you can go to their website, thermoworks.com, look through all their stuff and see what works for you the best. But I'm telling you that don't pass up on that ThermoPen. So.
And if you don't know what's going to work best for you, give us a call or shoot us an email. We have people here that use the products and know them inside and out. They'll help you find what's best for you.
Yep. And that's another good thing about them, is that customer service is 100% awesome. All right, man. Well, we appreciate you, Kyle. Thanks for having us in, man.
Thank you.
So, Rusty, we have something new on our social media stuff.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, now we have a website. What's the website, Rusty?
It's the pitmasterspodcast.com.
I see.
So we're going to have that up probably when this drops, and have that able for you guys to go to. It'll be a work in progress, but we hope to have all of our episodes on there where you can get us. And a lot of people are like, well, they like links. So that's a good place to go to get all the links for everything. We'll have these videos up. We'll have our YouTube videos there. We'll have profiles one down the road on the guests that we have. We'll be doing lots of stuff. So, again, you can find us on the pitmasterspodcast.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on all the places your podcast can be listened to. We appreciate all of the support. We've had a really big week as far as downloads go and subscriptions. So that's been super fun to see. So if you guys can subscribe, drop us a review, and yeah, man, tell your friends, let us know if you guys want to hear anything, want to talk to someone, something you're interested in. Any suggestions? This Facebook Live is Dave Glover's idea from Half Baked Hippies. He's been giving me some really cool advice. So we're always like ThermoWorks people. We're hearing you, and we're implementing some cool stuff that we want to do for you guys, because that's what we do. We're here for you. So
that's it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, guys. Remember to get your turkeys out. Yep. We will see you next week.